Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, we have an addendum under new business, letter D. Consider approval of offering additional contracts for the 22-23 school year. We would add a recommendation to offer a contract to Josie Ryan as an English teacher at Torrington Middle School and Chelsea DeWitt as an elementary teacher at Trail Elementary for the 22-23 school year.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda with the addendum?
I move to approve that item.
And the agenda?
I mean, the agenda is amended. I'm sorry.
No. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item C is information and proposals, beginning with the Goshen County Recreation Board allocations. To present that this evening, or just as presented in the packet.
So and any of those committee members who would like to reference that information, would be certainly welcome to at this time to share that information with the board, any details that they see as pertinent to that information.
So the total was 243,710, and I think that we had about, I think every request that was put forward did receive an amount. So this year we had Dr. Pieper, Steve Fagler was not at our meeting, but it was Trustee Bollington, Trustee Hager, and myself. There was a lot of discussion regarding, requests, and some of them we just couldn't actually give them all. But I'm very encouraged by the fact and the amount of interest that community members have, wanting to actually put forward within the community, and they see the need for our recreation. I think that it was a very, very good meeting this year. So not sure if there's any other questions that anybody has.
Why does the suffrage one have 4 options to choose from? What is that?
There were 4 requests or 4 options that they gave us as far as playground equipment that they were looking at, and they went with a lesser of the 4, where they could probably win a little bit more than they did, but they actually chose to actually go with the lesser one. So they gave us 4 options to choose from for them.
And one of the reasons was the playground equipment was on sale.
Yeah.
So that's why it cost, they went with that option. So
Any other questions?
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda then is item reports by the student representatives to the board.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. Our topic this month was, what has your high school done to get you college and career ready for after high school? So I started this thought process, deciding on a few characteristics that meant college and career readiness as well as post-high school readiness. I decided to focus on responsibility, knowledge, social, and emotional readiness. I asked for knowledge and information from past students, current students, teachers, and used my own experiences. Torrington High School has some positives in offering multiple subjects and courses to students, with the CRT, Woods, Agriculture, Art, Foreign Language, Computer Science, and Auto programs. Through some of these courses, students felt they had conversations with their teachers about career options and future goals. These specialized classes allowed the opportunity to explore career pathways post-high school. Past graduates, current students, and staff all shared the same concerns for college and career readiness and responsibility and emotional readiness. The main topic of conversation was the grading system, turning in assignments after due dates with no ramifications, with taking formative and common assessments multiple times became the biggest concern for all. Past students said they struggled with not dropping out of most of their classes because they weren't ready for the rigid one-time approach to tests and quizzes. Their stress levels were tremendously high due to the fact that they did not learn study habits and had never been taught or used them at Torrington High School in high school classes. Personally, taking a quiz that I can only score a 2 on is a huge stress for me. And it is only because I can't score higher than a 2. My parents constantly ask me about why my grades are so low in certain classes. Teachers say it's to document growth. What happens when you go to college and you get a D in a class? You have to dig yourself out of that hole. At THS, you just have to wait till the end of the semester to hopefully get an A or a B after multiple attempts and the possibility of getting a 4 or an A on a common assessment. In addition, past graduates said that they were not ready to write papers in APA or MLA format. Several made comments that they only wrote papers in their agriculture class. Many students felt that they weren't held to high enough standards for academics to be successful in college their first year, either online or in person. Current students also said they didn't know what opportunities existed outside the local colleges. They haven't had any guidance with scholarships or even college. Students are not aware of the options after high school, such as careers or even certifications. I attended the 95th annual Wyoming FFA convention this past week. There are many colleges and trade schools there, and we're talking to kids about their schools and their programs. This was a great way for students to see some of the options that are available. It was also brought to my attention that THS students do not have a college or career fair, nor have been allowed to attend one other than those in FFA and other activities. Being successful doesn't just mean academics. The lack of enforcement of dress code has been allowing inappropriate and sometimes lewd apparel to be worn. Teachers as well as current students have made several comments that not following the dress code was distracting and sometimes caused disruptions among other students. Being college or work ready also means knowing what is appropriate attire. Overall, we are missing the mark on readiness for the career and college, but acknowledging these changes is the first step that needs to be made in the right direction. Thank you for listening to the insightful thoughts of current students, past students, and a few staff members.
Before we move on, are there any questions for Ms. Groningen this evening?
No, but I would congratulate your FFA team.
Thank you.
Had a terrific tournament. Yeah.
I just have a couple of questions. Please, how many students, graduates did you ask about?
I asked 4 of some friends that had already made comments to me after hearing that I was on, or that I was a student representative. They wanted to make sure that their voice was heard on what they showed.
So 4 friends.
Yes.
How many staff members?
I talked to 3 teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cameron Rafferty, as you might see on my fancy name tag. Like Lacey said, today we're talking about my experience preparing for a post-high school education. And so what I wanted to start with is what my plan is for after high school. I'm planning on attending a university for 4 years. And then I want to get a certificate in aesthetics after that. And then I plan on starting my own business. So how I got to the point in deciding this is we have had lots of career fairs at my school. My guidance counselor set up a career fair just last month, and she got 27 businesses to show up. And there were businesses from Scottsbluff and Cheyenne and even Torrington. And grades 9 through 12 were invited to come to this career fair. And it gave students an opportunity to really interact with businesses. And we have quite a bit of vocational electives in our school, but we don't have all of the classes that can hit each career. So bringing in these schools or these businesses to our schools can really help students see what type of different paths that they can go into and how other people have gotten to these paths. As I mentioned earlier, we have lots of vocational programs. These include art, woods, ag, yearbook, auto, computer sciences, and more. These programs introduce students to skills that they might have not ever got the opportunity to know. Like, I know someone in my class that didn't know how to change a tire, and then they went to auto class, and now they're learning more than just changing a tire. They also prepare students that are not planning to go to college to just go straight to the workforce. Because I know some students feel that if they're not going to college, then school is really not a good place for them, but I don't think that's true. They also help students learn skill sets that they'll know for the rest of their life. I am currently dual enrolled, and every single person that I talk to, I recommend to also be dual enrolled. Basically what that is I am being a college student while also being a high school student. So I'm taking, right now I'm in intro to business, and I took public speaking last semester. I'm only allowed to take 1 to 2 classes a semester, so I can manage my own schedule while still pushing myself to learn how a professor would push me in a college setting. So how I talk to my peers about this topic is I took 5 students from each class, 9 through 12, and I asked them how they felt about the curriculum, the homework, the expectations, and the grading. I asked them to just give me a simple yes or no. And I took the average of each yes and each no, and I put it into a graph. So I started off with how many students are planning to go to college. And 90% of the students that I asked are planning on going to college. And then by the average of those yeses and nos, I summed it up to how many students are prepared to go to college after high school or to the workforce. And 62% of those students were not prepared to go to high school or college or the workforce after high school. Only 37% of those students were prepared to go to college. Basically, I just think that our expectations, although the teachers try, we aren't pushed enough. And a lot of that comes to ourselves. But I think that opening up students to opportunities, like how I mentioned earlier, these vocational classes and the dual enrollment, pushing those students to do that would really benefit a lot of people. And as Claycy mentioned earlier, the grading is not the easiest to get around when you have to go to a collegiate level and not have so many tries. But I think overall, my experience for planning post high school has been great. Thank you for listening.
Are there any questions for Ms. Rafferty this evening?
I missed it, Mr. Rapp. You mentioned the number of kids that you talked to. How many was that again? That you saw?
5 per grade.
5 per grade. What criteria did you use when they talked about feeling college or career ready? Like what determining factor did they use whether they said yes or no?
So I asked, do you think the curriculum teaches you things that you need to know in college or after college? And then they would say yes or no. And then I moved on to homework, expectations, and then grading. And then averaged it.
And you referenced you're currently taking college courses right now.
What was that?
You're in dual courses right now, you're in college
Yes,
courses.
I am.
How do you feel those are going?
Well, they're better now, but balancing them with being a student athlete in the first semester was kind of tricky, but that's just part of learning and teaching myself how to be better at time management.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alex McIntyre, and I'm the student rep for Southeast. As previously mentioned, when placing and Cameron, the grading is a little difficult, but it makes sense when you really think about it. When they have multiple tries, even though in college you won't get that, but it helps those that are ready for college to have more opportunities and understand the curriculum a little better. Coming from a private school, my freshman and sophomore year, I feel like Southeast with Mrs. Vogel, the guidance counselor, she's really pushing us to know what we're wanting to do and giving us opportunities and classes the best she can with college and high school level classes to push us into that career field. In light of what happened a couple of weeks ago out at Southeast, Mr. Clapper and Mr. Bowington have been, even though we're in different areas, they've still pushed us hard in the areas that they want us to see excel. And like Lacey said, at the FFA state convention this past week, there was a lot of opportunities for kids to understand there are colleges, there are vocational schools out there willing to help you. Also, there was also opportunities in ag for the military. They had the National Guard and the Air Force Guard out there, letting us know there are opportunities that they can help you with to understand better. College classes are the one with Mr. Leafhead in my college Excel class. He helps you balance it with track, and he makes sure that you understand that you need to have this done by this date, but he's also giving you leniency, but not as much as you would expect from like a teacher in the high school, at the high school level. He's giving you leniency so you can get work done, but he still expects you to get it done by the due date. I've seen several teachers give multiple opportunities for people to excel in their areas that they're struggling in, giving them extra assignments, giving them extra help. Recently, I've struggled with mole conversions in chemistry. Mrs. Schmick has given me extra work to work on it and help me out.
Any questions?
Alex, you mentioned that you're in one of those, you're in a dual enrollment course.
Yes.
You did. Have you had an opportunity to take a concurrent enrollment course where the professor is actually an employee of PwC or any other colleges yet?
Not recently.
Are you planning that, or what are you thinking of? as
I'm
you move
going
forward?
to try next year, but that all depends on my schedule. Like I said, coming from a private school, I didn't have as many opportunities to enroll in math classes, so that I could take a concurrent math class with a professor, or concurrent English class with a professor from PwC.
How do you think, are you apprehensive in taking one of those concurrent versus dual, or do you think that dual enrollment option kind of sets you up for possible success in the concurrent, or do you think it's just going to be so different than Mr. Leahead's class, or how do you think that's going to work?
I'm looking at taking a concurrent math class next year. So I think being dual enrolled with Mr. Leafhead, he's kind of pushed me, and he's pushed me extra hard because I'm always training my work in early. So he started to push me extra hard like the professor would in a concurrent class.
That sounds.
Alex, I'd like to compliment you on that extraordinary extemporaneous speaking.
Thank you very much to our representatives to the board. Next on our agenda then is a school presentation and artwork by the Torrington Middle School.
Chairman Miller and members of the board, Mr. Kramer, thanks for an opportunity to present some information this evening. The information we're going to present is due to your approving additional positions. And as I thought about what we might share, there are many new positions in the district that have become available due to additional funding. And so we have 3 additional positions or programs at Torrington Middle School. And I'm going to introduce or have them introduce themselves and what their role is currently this year.
Good evening, I'm Jessica Martin. I help man the refocus room as a school counselor.
Cheyenne Broadway, I am the behavior interventionist. And I work with Jessica and Kelsey Grant on the behavior counseling side.
Hi, I'm Heather Milligan. I've been here forever. And so I've taught reading intervention for a long time, but it went away and you guys brought it back and I came back. So.
Hello, I'm LaDonna Sittner and I am the math interventionist for Torrington Middle School.
Thank you. So we have some information to share with you tonight. And Brian, if you help get us started, that'd be great. Just stay or sit down. So Mrs. Sittner's flex class is for math intervention.
It doesn't really look like that.
This is how technology typically works in the classroom, just to let you know.
Is there a greater fear for presenter than waiting?
Your stuff not work.
The turn computer up here.
So how'd you like it?
Very informative.
Isn't that the staircase or whatever it is?
It is the upside down ladder. And then what do you do with the V? You just kind of drag it along. So ignore it for right now. And just go ahead and factor your 40 and 70 with whatever numbers you can think of. Okay, 10 will work. Good.
Then it won't.
Okay, so just drag, so put your 10 on the outside. Yep, you got it. And then the 4, and then just drag the V along. The V will just go right with it. There you go. That's the nice thing with variables. You don't really do anything different. You do exactly the same that you do with your regular numbers. Okay, good. Got the idea? Mm-hmm. Okay, area of triangles. Let me see your pen for a minute. Remember with triangles, you can always take any rectangle and cut it in half. So we know it's the exact same formula that we use for the area of a rectangle, right? The only difference is we cut it in half. So you can write it divided by 2. Some people write it over 2. Okay, so it doesn't really matter what your letters are. We just have to know what the base is. So I can see the base right here is 12. It's standing on its base, yeah? Okay, is that the height or is that the height? Oh, or is that the height?
8,
Why?
because it goes more to the top.
Sure, do you think I'm 7 feet tall?
No.
No, but I could be if I measured from here clear out to here, right? But we don't measure height that way because we know I'm not 7 feet tall. So you're right, we're going to go straight up and down. So we're going to take it times 8. Now that would give me the area if I had the whole rectangle. So the only thing I have left to do then is to cut it in half. Exactly. Okay? So your area of your triangle is exactly half of what it would be of a rectangle. So just find the area of the rectangle and then just cut it in half, divide it by 2.
Okay.
Okay? Good.
That makes a lot of sense.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Good, of course. Let me grab the candy jar. Nice job today, guys. I think Brooklyn gets the award for cruise.
Burger toy. Yay. My mom still gets Burger King. She doesn't care. Okay, all right. What, that ain't fair? I'm 12.
Okay, read it and write it.
Look at you. Got it now. I'm gonna be 12.
So if I'm 12, if I'm exactly 12, can I get one? If I'm exactly 12. It says under 12, so I can't be 12. No, that's, that was the problem. The sign was not the problem. The sign is deciding whether you need that equal sign underneath or not. Like, can I be 12? If I can't be 12, can't I? There you go. Now you got it.
Because I'm a little confused.
Okay, read it again.
Alia
Sure.
is making a bracelet and a necklace to give to her friend. She adds 8 charms to the bracelet. Alia plans to put at least as many charms on the necklace as the bracelet. Let N represent the number of charms Alia might add to the necklace, which inequality models the story.
She plans to put at least as many.
Yeah.
So is it okay if she puts on 8? Is that at least as many as she did for the bracelet?
Yeah.
Okay. And
So
that's the least that she wants to put on.
Okay. So then she can put less, or she can put more.
She can put more than.
Because she can add in. Okay.
Exactly.
So it
So
can
what
be
would that
equal
look like?
to or more to.
There you
Hi.
Was Mrs. Sittner in her room with a small group of students. Would you talk very briefly about how you select those students? Why are you there?
Working with the classroom teachers, one of the complaints is that we don't have time. We have time to collect data. We don't have time to do anything with it. So one of the goals this year was to do the STAR test, and we were going to do that 4 times. So we did it right at the beginning of the year, and then after a quarter of instruction, we gave the STAR test again. So what I do is I take that data and I analyze it and I see where the kids are at, see where they are as far as their percentile rank and as far as their scale score goes. And their scale score is some big fancy formula that tells you how many questions those kids answered correctly compared to every other kid in the 6th, 7th, or 8th grade in the nation. And so it gives us a working number. In addition to that, it tells us focus skills. And with those focus skills per kid, it'll tell me where their gaps are. So sometime in their learning, they've obviously missed something, there's gaps. The focus skills will actually identify when those skills were first introduced. It could be as early as 3rd grade, 4th, 5th, or 6th. What I do then is I come up with a plan for that student using IXL, or other programs, whatever we have available, and try to come up with an individualized program for those kids to start working on closing those gaps. That's the whole idea behind what we're doing. I also have YTOP data from last year, and I try to kind of work with the YTOP data as well, and I also pull kids in. So this is a mix of grades in here, and it's all individualized. And when the kids come to Flex in the morning, they have their notebook in front of them, which I've already prepared their plan. They sit down, they go exactly to work, and then I just bop around, and that way I can be there individually. So it's individual, but the kids are really, really self-directed with it as well.
Thanks.
Sure.
Mr. Foster.
I'm Heather Milligan, and I teach a reading intervention at TMS. And these are some of my students. I actually really concentrate on comprehension. And there are several things with comprehension that helps you. One is the pace, how fast they're reading. Another one is their accuracy and their expression. So we've been working on all of this, but we really look at reading strategies. So my kids are more or less on the bubble, and we need to try to get them from 2s to 3s on their white top and all their testing. So I do several testing, factors in here where we look at STAR, and Mrs. Walker and I both look at that. And then also we look at the silent reading inventory. A lot of our things is developed around vocabulary, because if they don't understand the words, then they're not going to comprehend. So I do tons, like I said, of reading strategies. We've done sensory images, we've done questioning, we've done think alouds. We've really worked on a lot of non-fiction type things. Now we're getting into fiction. We do a lot of determining importance as far as that goes. We're going to do some sequencing, just your regular reading strategies to make you become a better reader. We just got done doing main idea, didn't we? Okay, and that one was a rough one. That one was kind of tough. Today we're going to be looking at more or less a vocab activity that we're going to do, so you guys can see a little bit what I do with vocabulary. And then we're going to do a little bit of pacing and expression with a poem dealing with some comprehension. So we're going to do the vocabulary wheels. These are some vocab steps that we've been looking at. We've got glimpse, debris, legacy, fleece, infuriate, and let's go to glimpse. Go for it, Bree.
Glimpse. Definition: a quick look. Synonym: peered. Antonym: stared. And then did looking at books.
Okay, good. What's the difference between peered or take a glance than stare? What's the difference?
Peered is like your focus.
Yeah, and is it quick or not?
Kind of.
Yeah, what about if you take a glance or a glimpse? Is it quick?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But now staring, what's the difference? What's the difference?
Staring is like you're staring for a
Yeah,
long
you're
time.
neat. Okay, good, good. All right, what can we do for infuriate, guys? What can we draw for a synonym?
Someone mad.
All right, someone mad. Come on board. Let's go. Okay, we can draw someone mad. So can we just draw more or less?
You can draw a frowny face.
We can draw a frown. He's looking pretty cranky. Okay, what can we do for a synonym?
Angry.
Angry. And what can we do for the definition?
Mad.
Mad, upset. Remember on this one, we can pretty well, these can kind of intertwine. Okay.
And happy.
Woo, woo, happy. Yep.
Excited.
Happy, excited.
Also, I'll tell you, black ain't been no. For me, ain't been no Christmas fair. I had tacks in it and splinters and bullets torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor bare. But the time it's been climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't turn back. Don't sit down on the steps 'cause you find it's kind of hard. Don't fall now, for I'm still going, honey. I'm still climbing, and life for me ain't been no Christmas.
Perfect. 29. So you beat it. Is this lady the mother from our country or from down south?
Down south.
How do we know?
Because this is the climbing without the G, and then landings without the G's, and then ain't. I mean,
Okay.
that can go with both. And then it's like a country version.
What kind of country?
Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It had tacks in it and splinters and boards torn up and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time, it's been climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn your back. Don't you sit down on the steps 'cause you find it's kinda hard. Don't you fall now, for I still going, honey. I still climbing, and life for me ain't been no crystal stair.
Nice.
How's it going?
So in addition to Mrs. Milligan's classes, she works with sixth graders and she has 5 classes a day. We also have 2 periods of Orton Gillingham, which you've heard about. And so we have 2 different types of programs that students work through, and hopefully both will lead to higher levels of student achievement, particularly in reading skills. So the next program is our refocus room. And Mrs. Martin, could you come up and give a very brief overview of why we established this program and what it's for?
I feel like we established this program to teach the whole child to recognize that when our basic needs aren't being met, when we don't feel safe and secure, and we're thinking with our downstairs brain or emotional brain, we're not going to be making the best choices possible, and it's giving them a safe space to reconnect that emotional brain to their thinking brain so that they can be their best selves in the classroom. That's that. That good?
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Not very good.
Not good. What happened?
So he took our phones away for no reason.
It was before the bell had rang, and we were just trying to watch cat videos, and he took away our phones.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know the process, right? We fill this out, both of you.
Okay.
Just put both of your names on it. One form. And then we'll visit about it, okay?
Okay. Form. Then Mrs. Broadway is able to see their responses on the computer before they even talk to her. Most often, she asks if they need a break before they discuss the problem. So what do you guys think?
I think we need a break.
Okay. So your options are you can do some deep breathing, you can walk around, you can do a coloring page, you can play with kinetic sand, we can throw a ball.
That one.
We're going to throw, we like to throw a ball. Okay, so we're going to set the timer for 5 minutes. So you can throw the ball for 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes, then Mrs. Broadway is going to discuss what happened. You're going to get your side of the story, kind of share some of the teacher's concerns, and see if we can come up with a solution that helps you get back to class in a productive way. Okay. All right? Ooh, this is soccer ball. Nice. Yeah. So there are things on this ball that we can answer, or would you like to just throw them? Like an author I've read, in the summer, TV show I'd never watch, or do you want to just pass it?
I'm good with either.
I want to answer questions.
All right, would you like to join our game?
Yes, I will join.
So,
3 yummy foods. Anything with potatoes. So, French fries, mashed potatoes, and tater tots.
Nice. Describe your family. Very loud.
are you guys ready to discuss what happened?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we have a seat over here, girls? So, you were on your phones?
Yes.
Before or after the bell rang?
Before the bell rang.
Before. Had Mr. Martin already asked you to put them away?
No.
No. Are you sure?
He might have.
We were a
Okay.
little busy.
A little busy.
We were watching cat videos.
Cat videos during class.
Well, technically
class.
before class started, but we were in the classroom.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so when you go into the classroom, are you supposed to put your phones somewhere specific? Or not until after the tardy bell rings?
Depends on the student.
Yeah.
Some of them put it as soon as they get in there, and some of it do it when the bell rings.
Okay. Do you think that you were being safe, respectful, or responsible? So not being respectful or not being responsible?
Maybe not responsible because we didn't put our phone in the caddy yet.
Okay. What did you want? What were you hoping to get? Were you hoping to get attention from others, challenge the adult, get sent home? I sure hope not. Solve a conflict from a different class? Did you want to be in control of the situation, help doing your homework, wanted to be heard, or something else?
I just wanted to watch cat videos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the cat videos.
Did you get what you wanted by being sent down here, though?
No.
No.
Absolutely no.
Okay. Because I would assume that you didn't want to be sent out of class, right?
Right.
What can we do differently next time?
Maybe we could share the videos before, like during lunch.
Okay. Okay. So you could share before lunch or during lunch or during passing. What coping strategies helped you while you were down here?
Throwing a ball.
Throwing the ball. How did that help you?
I think it just calmed me down.
Got my mind thinking about something else.
Something else? Okay. Do you suppose there should be a consequence?
Maybe.
What
I
do
think
you
we should just talk about it
talk about it with
Mr. Martin.
With Mr. Martin? Okay. So a restorative conversation, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk to Mr. Martin. Maybe apologize for not hearing when you think he might have asked you to put your phone away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds fair.
Okay. Explain that you won't let it happen again, that kind of thing, right? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to sign this, and then you two are going to sign your lives away, saying that this is what we did while you were down here, and the strategies that we used, things that helped, and then that you guys would like to have a conversation with him about this.
A lot of times kiddos come in here, they just need time and space. We respect that. Sometimes they have a hard time with passing periods. The classroom, goodness gracious. The hallway is too overwhelming for them. And so they come in here. We have a kiddo that regularly does the puzzle and then goes to class. It's just a couple minutes and it helps him be more successful. Sometimes we do have ISS kiddos in here. Other times we have math intervention groups in here. If it is a mental health concern, then Mrs. Broadway will refer that person over to myself or Mrs. Grant, which one of us is available across the way. But really this is just to be more mindful of the whole child, to recognize that they have skills that they're working on, to help them learn how to develop those skills, and to help them be their best selves.
Thank you. Building that. Thanks, Brian. Do you have any questions about anything you present? I apologize for my voice. I've got a head cold. If not, thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate the opportunity.
Item D on our agenda is public forum. Do we have any officials and chiefs speaking in public forum? So as a reminder, there's a 5-minute time limit to public forum. Legal restrictions do, thank you. Limit the amount of board comment and interaction during this portion of the meeting. Mr. Bob Peterson.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, teachers. I was looking at this proposal on the salary, where the state of Wyoming is allowing a carryover of 15 to 30% of funds that could be used up to the year 2026. And I'm just wondering how the people in the community are going to feel about $1 million handout to the teachers and the staff of the HRSA funds. I mean, really? Do you think only the teachers and the staffs were affected by COVID? So you got $1 million and you say, well, just blow it and hand this cash out. I'm suggesting that you don't pass that $1 million expenditure. And this is the same amount of money I talked about in January 8th, the $3.5 million in HRSA funds that was put into that budget that says educational. And I don't see how this kind of accounts for educational, but I'm going to check into it because $1 million just handed out to teachers and staff. It make much sense to me. And it seems too on the HRSA funds, there was 2 other times that Mr. Kramer, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, but 2 other times it was brought up before the board about furniture and remodeling, and the funds couldn't be used because it wasn't educational. So that's all I'm asking. I'm just recommending it. You don't give that $1 million handout. That doesn't make any sense to me. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Item E on the agenda then is our recommended actions with number 1, approval of the consent agenda. Is there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda this evening? I would like personally to have item C, approve the district fiscal statement and fund balance comparison report hold for separate approval. Are there any other items? With that item pulled, is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
I move to approve the remaining consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda with item C removed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve item C that was removed from the consent agenda? Approval of the district monthly fiscal statement and fund balance.
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? So the reason why I asked for this item to be pulled is there's been comments that I've received from various members of the public about the budget specifically. And so the reason that I had this pulled is just to point out that that statement is in every agenda, and it does reside on the consent agenda. So if there are ever any questions by district trustees related to the budget or the fiscal statement, it's appropriate to have them at during this time period. So just simply as a point of education. So, yes.
Shannon, do you want me to post that, just to reference it so visuals can know exactly what it looks like?
Please.
Mr. Chair, I'd also elaborate a little bit. The first page, the board review of revenues and expenditures, that's provided on a monthly basis. It shows you the year to date. And what I'm going off of is this was as of March, we're 75% of the way through the budget. So that's what I'm looking at in particular in relation to expenditures. You can see that our revenue is at 26,061,000 and our expenditures are at 18,124,000. So we are positive at this point in time. If you turn it over, look at the fund balance comparison, this does have a month lag, and that's based upon the timing of when we receive our bank statements. So this is showing you our balance in each of these funds last year at this time, and then where we are at the present time. And the purpose of this report is when you're approving expenditures, we provide you the fund where the monies are coming from. This gives you an idea of the balances that you're working with. And then it also shows you from last year to this year, if there's any changes in balances.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving item C from the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Move on to old business. Number 2, letter A, the consider approval of proposed revisions to district policy 41.5 and /4211.25, which is internet access for district staff, as presented on second and final reading. Is there a motion?
So move to approve that.
Move to approve that item. Yeah, I'll second it.
It's been motioned by Ms. Patrick and seconded by Ms. Bullington to approve this item as presented on second and final reading. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item B then is to consider approval of proposed revisions to District Policy 4350, which is employee use of social media sites, including personal sites, as presented on second and final reading. Is there a motion?
I move to approve that item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Bullington and seconded by Mr. Sussex to approve this item. Any discussion? None. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Just as a point of clarity, just in case, I am administrator on call for my professional obligations. So if I step out urgently, that is why I just wanted to make that known. I stepped aside and Mr. Sussex can continue on. Item 3 then is new business. Letter A is consider approval of offering teaching contracts, the renewal of initial contract teachers, and the annual employment agreements for the 2022-2023 school year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Clarify, are you moving to approve these contracts? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? A point of clarity on these is there's certain individuals that due to the way in which they have obtained their certification or their education to teach that require annual review and renewal, such as auto teacher. Mr. Kramer, do you have any further information?
Yes, and the renewal for contracts, there's 3 different categories. Initial contracts for those continuing from the continuing contract, which means that they've been employed for the first 2 years, and they get a continuous contract after that second year. And then those initial contracts where they've completed their initial year of evaluation and they're moving to the second year. And then there's annual contracts for renewal, which constitute those individuals who either have attained a certification through an alternative means, through a program where they have work experience granted into their profession. And so they were granted a certification based on that work experience rather than an educational degree. And so those individuals are approved on a yearly basis. And included in those are school nurses, school counselors, school social worker, and school psychologists that are annually approved under that criteria. So there are different reasons for having those separate than the continuing contracts that we have for other teachers who have been here 3 or more years within the district and have completed an education program in their undergrad or post-grad degrees.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can we also just make sure that under Mr. Anaya, that date is correct?
If we can make a correction on the list to the hired date on the first line of annual contracts for renewal to read 2022 as opposed to 2019.
There's clerical error on that sheet. Okay. All those in favor of approving the offering teaching contracts for renewal of initial contract teachers and annual employment agreements for the 2022-2023 school year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Are there any abstentions? Motion carries. Item B, consider approval offering administrator contract for the 2022-2023 school year to Mr. Robert Weigel. Weigel as principal at Lincoln Elementary for the 2022-2023 school year pending certification. Is there a motion?
I move that we offer an administrator contract to Robert Weigel for the 2022-2023 school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Kramer, I assume that this individual has certification in another state, it's just pending Wyoming certification.
On this one, it is actually contracted already approved within the state of Wyoming. So there is now one pending the certification in letter B. Under letter C, there is the pending certification piece.
Okay.
So yes, we're fine on that, on letter B.
So Weigel is not pending certification.
No, he is currently employed as an administrator in the state of Wyoming and close that certification. I think that probably would read more certification authorization to make sure we can be continuing as we do for all employees to make sure they are certified in the appropriate area and it's continuing past that initial year of which they applied.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving contracting with Mr. Robert Weigel as principal of Lincoln Elementary for the 2022-2023 school year. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Item C then, motion carries. Item C is to consider approval of offering administrator contract for a 1/4 time administrator to Lindsay Maxey as principal at Platte River School for the 2022-2023 school year pending certification. Ms. Maxey is also a 3/4 time PR at Platte River School teacher. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah. It's been moved and seconded to approve offering a contract to Ms. Maxey as 1/4 time principal at Platte River School. Is there any discussion?
This is one of those situations as different than letter B, that the certification has not been finalized as Ms. Maxey is in a program currently to get the certification, but there is avenues within the Wyoming as we certify staff in that continuation and through the process. And so we've had that initial conversation with PTSB in regards for that certification and want to get that in place, but we would not necessarily be finalized until that certification has been finally granted after the program approval.
So how does that work? The 1/4 time, who's the other 3/4 of the time? How does that?
So that actually is then 1/4 of the time we serve as the administrator within that building, the other 3/4 as the teacher. There's another teacher on staff that we approved last month for that position also. And so there's multiple teachers within that building. It will be something down the line based on numbers that we'll have to continually look at to see if we might have to add additional staff to that school because of the interest in that school. Did that address the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of offering this contract to Ms.
Mayor, I just want to reference something. I apologize. The reason actually the additional waiting for this administrator in this situation is as PRS progresses in a school, they then are granted the funding formulas for different positions as we progress. So as we continue on, they're getting funding for and allocations for administration, allocations for secretaries, just like our Torrington High School or TMS is allocated based on the number of students per position. We're getting now to the point, because we've had multiple years, that PRS is now getting funded in that funding formula along those same lines. So we have the allocation of dollars to utilize for an administrator. And based on our experience over the last couple of years in PRS, there certainly is a need to have an administrator on staff within PRS, especially as we look towards a different location for that program, as they are definitely outgrowing their current location.
That's the question I was going to ask, is if the funding's separate, but we're in the same building, are they getting building funding? And if so, how would that be different since it resides in the high school?
Great question. So right now, their building allocation is going towards Torrington High School building allocation because they exist in the same building. If they were to exist in a different location, and Marcy might be able to explain this a little bit better in regards to how that is allocated, because it's not specifically allocated as you shall have this amount towards this building. It is a district allocation, and Marcy, you kind of want to express that or explain that a little bit.
We receive major maintenance dollars for our schools. And what happens is they look at the number of students participating in that school, and they look at the number of square foot needed to instruct those students. Torrington High School, as well as many of our other schools, have excess square footage. But what happens at THS in the present is that THS students and Platte River students are figured into that allocation as far as major maintenance dollars and that allowable amount of square footage.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving offering this contract for a quarter-time administrator to Lindsay Maxey as principal of Platte River School for the upcoming 22-23 school year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item D is consider approval of offering contracts for the 22-23 school year to Shanda Rogers as a special education teacher at Torrington Middle School, Jody Disler as a math teacher at Torrington High School, Kaylee Bonsack as a halftime physical education teacher at Torrington High School, Katie Keller as a school nurse at Torrington Middle School and Torrington High School, Tammy Durford as a district special education case manager, Josie Ryan as an English teacher at Torrington Middle School, and Chelsea DeWitt as an elementary teacher at Trail Elementary for the 2022-2023 school year. Is there a motion?
I move to approve that item.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of offering these teaching contracts as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E then is to consider approval of contracting with Wyoming Educators Benefit Trust for the district health insurance coverage for the 22-23 school year. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of contracting with WEP for the district health insurance coverage for the upcoming 22-23 school year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item F then is to consider approval of district employee salary and benefit compensation proposal for the 22-23 school year. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Any other information that the members of the Salary Relation Committee would like to present?
We tackled a number of very big issues this year and worked very diligently in order to satisfy the interests of all the stakeholders represented. And we did our best, we feel, for the students and employees of the district. So we appreciate the confidence the rest of the board invests in us.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the district employee salary and benefit compensation proposal as presented, for the 22-23 school year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item G is consider approval of proposed new district policy 3381, memorials for students, for staff as presented on introduction and first reading. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that this item is tabled, so that some clarification can be made.
There's been a motion to table this item. Is there a second?
A second.
Perfect. All those in favor of tabling this item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So this item will go back to, there's a few questions that are outstanding for the policy committee. Item H then is to consider approval of proposed revisions to the district policy 5131.7 interscholastic athletics and activities as presented on introduction and first reading. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve policy 5131 on as presented on introduction and first reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item I then is consider approval of contracting with TransFinder for district transportation software and hosting services for the 22-23 school year. It's recommended that we approve contracting with TransFinder for this service, including the first year setup and implementation in the total amount of $13,245 for the 2022-2023 school year. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Will the $6,350 be an annual fee after that second year for this service?
That is correct. This program is replacing the Tyler or Traversa option that there is additional costs to get it set up and whatnot the first year. And then the second year, it's projected to be that $6,350. And this was vetted through Mr. Foster and Mrs. Fott.
Marcy, can you kind of go over what this service does? Please?
Sure.
Thank
Sure.
you.
What this is this first and foremost is the routing software. So this assists Mrs. Bott as the transportation supervisor in putting her routes together. It assigns the stops for where students live and where the Torrington stops are, where kids come into different neighborhoods to be picked up. This software also will be used as our old software was for assigning activity trips. So the schools put in their trips as they need buses or travel. We also have the opportunity and we look forward to being able to utilize GPS on these buses, on our buses through this system, to be able to track locations of buses and track maintenance costs. That will help with parents calling in and wanting to know where students are or should they be arriving, et cetera. We'll be able to track and monitor them through that system.
So what criteria does this program use to set up different stops or routes? Is it efficiency? Is it what algorithm does it use to come up with the routes?
The routes are set up in conjunction with with Mrs. Bott, reviewing them. It's looking at the number of students on a bus. It's looking at the length of time students are on the bus. And then the category is to ages of kids riding on the buses.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving this item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item J then is to approve contracting with Frontline Education for 504 program management from May 2nd, 2022. Sorry, there's a clerical error on the agenda. May 2nd, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, in the total amount of $7,403. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving this item as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item K is consider approval of district curriculum coordinating council recommendations for the 22-23 school year. It's recommended to approve the addition of new course advanced coding Python for 1.0 credits, allowing computer science courses to count for credit as needed for graduation and or Hathaway requirements, and to approve the proposed new math curriculum for all students K through 6. Is there a motion?
So
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Anything that you'd like to make mention of specifically, Mr. Fuller?
I did want to mention that on the credit requirements, or the way that'll be applied, if a student is taking an additional computer science course or a computer science course, those credit options kind of go through a drop-down system. So first option would be the student would have that credit applied to computer applications. If they already have that credit, then at that point, our system will be set up to look at the next thing, which would be a third science for graduation or Hathaway. If they already have that credit, then the system would look to see if they need a fourth math for Hathaway, because computer science doesn't qualify. We don't have a fourth math on our graduation requirements. If those two are met, then the next thing that we'd look at would be vocational credit for graduation and Hathaway. So the idea behind it is that we want to try, and if a student already has that computer applications credit, we want to try and find some credit somewhere that will help them either with graduation or Hathaway requirements.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this item as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item L is consider approval of purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of new district elementary math curriculum for the 22-23 school year. It's recommended that we approve the purchase of Eureka Math for the district math curriculum from grade 9s in the total amount of $52,695.24 for the 2022-2023 school year, funded from the general fund. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this item as presented. Is there any discussion?
When was the last time the district got a new curriculum for K-6 math?
Before my time, for sure. Prior to that, actually, I think we'd probably go back quite some time. I'd even actually possibly ask our student representatives if they can remember back to their elementary days, if there was specific programs that they can recall, or maybe Jennifer can help us out too, or Diana. Do you recall specifically an allocation related to a math expenditure for K through 6?
Our last expenditure would have been in vision. That should have been. It's been a while, but
Yeah.
that would have been, that would have been.
Then that's less than I would have thought, actually, because I remember the Envisions conversation, not with me, but with having that enter the conversation. That's probably within the last 10 years. Then.
Yeah, it's been the last 2 years.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot. Thank you.
Sorry. So then follow up to that, is there a minimum amount of time when we get a new curriculum that we stick with it before we decide we don't like it, or what is the process behind that?
Interesting question, because we actually have been, and one of the important pieces is the materials purchase versus curriculum. Our curriculum maintains based on the state standards for at the state level and the establishment of those standards, and then us identifying within those either power standards or our top 10. So that's based on our curriculum. In materials purchase, what we're trying to get and what this is the process of kind of entailing is a 7-year rotating process. So then after 7 years, we would evaluate our current system and then make any adjustments that we may need to this based on what we're finding. After 7 years, it may still mean that we are in a situation where we don't need to make a major change, and we just look at if there's any possible updates. The unique thing with Eureka is there's a Eureka map and then there's a Eureka squared. Mr. Fuller, is that correct? Am I pronouncing that?
Correct. So if I could just add
Go right
something
ahead.
to that. So Eureka Squared is the newest product from Great Minds, who handles Eureka. And what we would be doing is adopting Eureka Squared. And one of the big concerns we had going into looking at adopting Eureka is under the Eureka math program, they say that you need 175 days to teach all the lessons in that. Our calendar is only 175 days. That makes it very difficult to cover all that material. With Eureka Squared, what we learned during our February PD day where we discussed math is that under Eureka Squared, they have condensed down, eliminated things that don't need to be in there. And this aligns with the Wyoming state standards that we use. And so the other thing that happened when they did that is under Eureka Squared, every grade level from K through 5 now only has 6 modules. For example, in 4th grade that's been piloting this, is it 8 modules that they currently have? And so by doing that, one of the positives is it cut down the amount of instructional days from 175 down to 140. That gives us 35 days in our annual schedule. I mean, you know, in elementary school, you lose days for things like activities that happen around Christmas and Valentine's Day and assemblies and those kind of things. So it makes it a much more feasible task for our teachers to be able to complete all that instructional material. The other thing about Eureka Squared is will help us establish a common scope and sequence across all of our grade levels and all of our classrooms across the district. I can go into more detail if you have additional questions about where we're at. I will tell you that if the board does approve adopting this, we've already got members of the math implementation committee set up that will move forward right away. That committee will meet a couple, maybe 3 times between now and the end of the school year. And then I anticipate that committee won't meet until probably late March, early April next year to just gauge how our first year went. You know, are we utilizing all the pieces that we're purchasing? Are there things that we feel we don't need to continue with? And also look at the PD appropriation that we set up. And is that working? What do we want to plan for PD the following year? And I can answer more questions when you get to the agenda items for the PD too.
One thing I'd like to add too, and I don't know if Trustee Bullington or Trustee Sussex would like to speak to this, but I want to commend Mr. Fuller and Ms. Cawthorn too for formalizing the curriculum coordinating council process. They added a large number of individuals to that council than previously were on there by including a number of parents. I hadn't been to the previous one earlier in the year, but I went to this last one, and it was really great to see the conversations that were taking place in that council related to these topics and the topic that was just previously approved relating to parent experiences, parent questions, and then integrating those with teacher responses. And then also trustees having the opportunity to ask those. So there was a very extensive conversation, and the process for formalizing that recommendation was a very stringent process moving through than what I've seen in previous, that I'm very pleased to see that go through and have that type of input even before it gets to the board level.
Yeah, I would echo that, and I'd add that it was nice to be able to get all different aspects, all different viewpoints on this before it got to this point. There was one question I did have for you, was there was some concern about the time that it was going to take a day to do this and where it was going to fit in teachers' schedules. What's our plan as far as implementation and stuff goes, to kind of make that work with the current schedules that we have, or the teachers have?
So I can tell you that one of our schools has already set up a plan that allows for 90 minutes of instructional time with the Eureka Squared math program. And so that'll be something that I'm sure will be on our agenda tomorrow. We're going to look at math next steps. And so the administrative team will have to make sure that we have that time available for teachers. We did do 2 different site visits, and one of the things we heard from both of those site visits, these are places that are currently using Eureka Math, not the E-Square. And what we heard from both places is it's really important to allow for some common planning time for teachers. And so that'll be something we'll be looking at as we move forward. I also anticipate that's the reason I put together a math implementation group. There's essentially one grade level member from every grade level, K through 6. We have Mr. Spears, one of our instructional facilitators, is on that. And I already have at least one administrator that wants to be on that. If we have a couple more, that'll be fine. If not, that'll be fine too. And we are looking at trying to find a district that is using E-Squared currently to see if we could maybe do a site visit, assuming everything is approved tonight. If it is, then we would talk to that district about, when you implemented E-Squared, what are some things that you would do again? What are some things that you would do differently? Because in my mind, it's important, if we know somebody that already is using it or has implemented it, let's try to gain from that knowledge and try not to rebuild the whole wheel if we don't have to. And so again, with the math implementation committee, essentially, when you look at all the different agenda items to purchase, we would be looking at purchasing the full package for our teachers the first year. And that includes some extensive professional development. We're following the same model we use for the Orton Gillingham. And then part of what that math implementation committee will do in late March, early April, they will look at all the components we purchased. If there's a component we're not using and we can say, okay, we're not going to take that, that'll save us some money, we'll certainly do that. If our teachers say, no, we're using every single thing and it's valuable to us, then of course we'll look at continuing that. The other thing that team will look at that to me will be really critical is, let's look at how the professional development model, where we have coaches coming into the district, how did that work for us? And what do we need for the upcoming year for that? And if we find after the first month or 2 that we need to make changes to that professional coaching model, that would be the only reason we would have a meeting of that math implementation team prior to that. I'll be soliciting opinion after the first couple of coaching cycles for everybody on that team. They'll be soliciting opinion from their collegial grade level groups, because again, we want to make sure that that coaching is working for our teachers and providing them with what they want.
I think one of the things that I walked away with being on the committee is the number of staff that said we want a curriculum. And they understand that the first year of anything that you start, even or OG, it's a difficult year. It's just going to be. And but I am very pleased with the support you guys have built into that to give those teachers the support. We had one teacher who talked about Eureka Math and said if it's not voted in, she plans to continue using it anyway because she sees such a benefit of it. Another first grade teacher went in and observed one of the fourth grade math, and she went back to her room and she said, oh boy, we are way behind. And so I think it's something that teachers see as a true benefit. for the whole county to improve our math scores.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I can share with you, we did poll all K-6 teachers in the district. And we asked them, based on what you know now, would you support adopting Eureka Math Squared? 38 out of the 43 teachers replied for an 88% response rate. Of those 38 responses, 30 teachers responded yes, which is a 79% positive rate.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this purchase in excess of $5,000, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Thank you. We're coming to item M on our agenda. It appears that we'll have at least another hour. Is there any desire for any of the trustees to recess for a short break or power through?
Power.
Power through it is. I would recommend, if any of our student representatives would like to be excused at this point, because the remainder look to be purchases on our agenda, that is more than okay, recognizing the late hour. It's totally up to you all. We appreciate your service and your diligence here this evening.
Can we take a brief break, please?
You would like a brief break?
Just
Okay.
brief.
We'll recess for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
We'll continue with our meeting, seeing that all trustees have returned. We are on item M, which is consider approval of contracting with Great Minds for Eureka Math Professional Development and Training in the amount for elementary teachers during the 22-23 school year in the amount of $192,600 funded through ESSER 3 and ARP funds. Is there a motion?
I so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item N is consider approval of a purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of Eureka Math curriculum manipulative materials from Didax Incorporated in the total amount of $24,459.60 funded from the general fund curriculum. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve this item as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item O is consider approval of purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of Zern online program for Eureka Math for the 22-23 school year for online intervention and supplemental programs in the amount of $12,500. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this item. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item P then is consider approval of contracting with the Institute for Multisensory Education for additional professional development for Gillingham training and support for district staff on August 8th through 12th, 2022 in the amount of $80,660. This is funded through the CLSD Y-Built Literacy Grant Funds. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item Q then is to approve contracting with TNG Solutions for Title IX investigation training for a total of 8 days and report writing training for administrators on September 26th through 30th and October 25th through 27th, 2022 in the total amount of $69,000 funded through the general fund. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Fuller, do you feel this additional training is necessary?
Yes, I do. Currently, one of the big things that is getting school districts into trouble on Title IX investigations is bias. And one of the ways that we eliminate bias in any of our formal Title IX investigations is by not having anyone that's connected with or lives in our county do those investigations for us. Mr. Kramer's had conversations with superintendents throughout Southeast Wyoming about forming a consortium of districts that have all their administrators trained in how to do investigations and report writing. And that would then allow us to interchange with each other and have more people available. Currently, there are only 3 groups we can pull from. Cheyenne school systems, Laramie school systems, and an investigator who was trained at some of this same training I took last August. And what's happened is Cheyenne and Laramie are the only two districts in the state that really have a good amount of people that are trained. And so everybody's calling them, and it's getting really difficult for us to be able to get somebody out of those districts. And unfortunately, if we don't do our Title IX investigations on a timely basis, we can get in trouble for that. And so, so like I said, one of the main things that this does is it provides a consortium group for us to call on, and then we can then help out other districts that are part of our consortium. In talking with Mr. Kramer, we are going to open this training up to all school districts throughout Wyoming. Any districts that attend this training, we would have a fee structure that we've already set up to charge them to attend. And so, you know, I talked to somebody in Riverton today and happened to bring up a couple things, this and the next item on the agenda. And she was going to talk to her boss, the curriculum director, because it sounded like they might be a little bit interested in this.
If I may make a comment, a lot of the things with Title IX, and I appreciate Mr. Fuller's work on this, the changes that actually are being felt right now actually took place at the start of November in 2018. And it's a 4-year process kind of to get through. It was finally reauthorized in 2020. We'll notice that Title IX previously, at most of the times in which we heard about it, was referencing equality within women's sports at the collegiate level and those type of things. With that reauthorization in 2020, there were provisions placed in there that directly affected K through 12 education. And now that's where we're kind of dealing with those ramifications and the fallout from that, because we recently, the trainings for schools really just started in this last summer. And so a lot of that information has just come into effect and caused a lot of challenges throughout all schools and dealing with it. As I talk with other superintendents, this is their #1 issue right now in what we are allocating man-hour wise and what we are allocating for training and those type of things because of those specific provisions. And if you have that bias piece, seems to be the #1 piece where if it is not followed very, very closely, is the easiest one that's getting attention in regards to litigation involving the investigation of that process. And that's one of the most common themes is there's already 3 current cases in the state of Wyoming that are dealing with bias. And we're not even through the first school year, which we really truly dealt with this. So this type of investment is definitely needed as we move forward to make sure that we're conducting the appropriate investigation procedures with anything that relates to Title IX.
And if I may, so when I went to my training in August, the first training I went to, what I was told is there's 2 main issues that are getting school districts into trouble. One is the bias, and the other one is not properly reacting to allegations of retaliation. And retaliation occurs when a complainant, that's the person who files the complaint, has things said to them or done to them by a respondent, which is the person who is alleged to have committed some type of violation of their Title IX rights. When that person either directly or directs others to do things against the complainant, if that's not handled immediately and very carefully, that gets districts in trouble. And I am aware of a school district in Wyoming that had an Office of Civil Rights investigation opened into their district. And the title of the investigation was retaliation. And so what that indicates to me is that this district is being investigated by OCR, the Office of Civil Rights, for not handling a retaliation claim correctly. I will mention that if the board would like at some point for us to give some kind of an overview of what's going on in Title IX, Mrs. Holly Laura, our new HR director, and she and I both had training from ATIXA from TNG. It is considered the gold standard by our school district attorneys, Scott Kopicki, and I'm sure we could, at a later board meeting, if you wanted some kind of an overview presentation of what's going on in Title IX, that we could easily do something like that for you.
I would like that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving a contract with TNG Solutions for this training as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item R is consider approval of contracting with the Danielson Group for administrator professional development and training for teacher evaluation on May 10th through 11th, 2022, for the total amount of $9,000 funded through Title I, II, and 6B funds. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair. Just so that you're aware, this is mandated in board policy that every 3 years we provide training to principals on the use of the teacher evaluation model. And according to Mr. Kramer, this hasn't happened yet since he's been here, so we're bumping up against the 3-year limit. So that's why this training was set up.
Here. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this item as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item S, consider approval of contracting with Jim Knight Coaching for instructional coaching and professional development for facilitators and administrators for the 2022-2023 school year in a total amount of $60,324.54 funded through Title I, Title II, and 6B funds. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the item S as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item T is approval of contract extension for additional professional development and public education and business coalition for the 2021-2022 school year for 1 day of professional development for virtual leadership coaching in the additional amount of $3,000 from April 1st through 2022 through June 30, 2022, utilizing Title II funds. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I may, just to reference what this is Scott Murphy, who has been working with the district for quite some time. We've also enlisted his trainings to help us with our collegial leaders over the last year, and it has been very well received. We would like to do some more work with Scott regarding our collegial leaders to close out the school year, and that's the reason for this addition.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of item T on the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item U, consider approval of contracting with Sources of Strength for professional development for Torrington High School and Torrington Middle School for training of staff at THS and TMS in a total amount of $10,000 on May 2nd and 3rd, utilizing the suicide prevention grant. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item V is consider approval of contracting with Kagan for professional development for Lincoln Elementary staff from June 1st through 3rd and 6th through 7th in the total amount of $19,335. utilizing Lincoln Title I funds. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I may. You'll recall that this is part of the presentation that Lincoln Elementary presented a major portion of their student program and they feel that has accounted for a reduction in student behaviors and a consolidation of belief systems centered around those things has made a significant impact, and that's why the continuation is requested.
Is this something that could be utilized by the other elementaries as well?
This is something that other elementaries are taking a look at, and we've kind of utilized Lincoln as our model to see that implementation practice and how it's working. There are some unique features to Lincoln Elementary that have aided in this, dealing with the numbers and things. But as we and we'll get to a little bit more information on our MTSS coordinator that might help in assisting any expansion of Kagan across the district as we kind of take a look.
Thank you.
How will this, Lincoln's got a lot of new staff coming in. So if we're doing the training in June, will that be extended then to those new staff members at a later date or?
I'll Mr. Fuller answer that.
So one of the things I've been doing is looking at new training, not just in June, but already in August. That's why I had the things from Horton Gillingham from IMSI on there. I've been in contact right now personally with every single new staff member that was hired up until tonight's board meeting to discuss these things. I've made them aware of some of the different things we're doing with Horton Gillingham. I haven't brought this one up yet because it was not board approved, but that'll be something that either myself or Mrs. Sims or Mr. Weigel will be offering to those and asking them if they're able to attend. We have already made arrangements that those new staff that do attend will get all their payroll paperwork filled out so that they can be paid work beyond for that time. And so we're just there's a lot of things we got going on right now in the curriculum department for June and for August for both existing staff and new staff. And the thing about this particular Kagan, the previous Kagan training has been on the win-win discipline. This is actually expanding because Kagan also offers training in instructional techniques that help engage students and keep them engaged and allow for more robust exchange of thoughts and ideas among kids. And so this is actually a 5-day training session. And so by bringing it here, with the amount of staff we have, we actually saved substantially over sending staff to the exact same conference in Denver at the same time. And, if Ms. Sims wants to talk a little bit more about what this is compared to the win-win, I would definitely defer to her.
So what this goes through is it kind of backs up a little bit, goes through more of the why as far as the structures that are set up so that it helps them to understand that these are the structures that we can use to help promote that communication, the cooperation, and then win-win is the discipline that goes along with that, and then the strategy helps support that. So these are actually instructional strategies, but by using these, then we eliminate some of the discipline that is created by not having that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approval of item V, contract with Kagan for professional development, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item W then is to consider approval of a new job description for an MTSS coordinator and the posting of the new district position for the 2022-2023 school year. Although, is there a motion?
I move to approve of this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? My question is does this position already in the preliminary budget that was previously presented, is this position currently residing within that budget?
Mr. Chair, that's a great question. The preliminary budget that we looked at is general fund, and this position is grant funded. So this will be part of the federal fund preliminary budget that you'll approve in.
So if I may add some information, Mr. Fuller and I recently, about a month ago, Mr. Fuller, about 3 weeks ago, went down to Cheyenne to discuss with the Wyoming Department of Education our literacy grant and some specifics, as there's been some significant changes at the Wyoming Department of Ed and who was in charge of certain grants. So we wanted to get on the same page with the new people involved in that literacy grant and the new application of the long-term literacy grant as opposed to the small one that we were included in. As part of that grant, there was an additional requirement that each district that was applying had to address MTSS systems within their district. And so as we were in that visitation process, they shared with us how some districts were utilizing a coordinator to address that issue. And so this would be part of that long-term literacy grant or that larger literacy grant and would have a significant impact on our needs for the district. You may have recalled a couple of years ago when we started the problem-solving process and some in-depth training that we provided across the district in regards to once we have a student who is below the 40th percentile on some of our screening data, what are the next steps as we try to address some of the learning needs for that student. When we talk about MTSS, it's multiple tiered systems of support. This doesn't necessarily just hold academics, and it also includes behaviors. And so what we're trying to do is develop a system where there are tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 supports. Tier 1 being the most minimal supports or interventions, which may include just a quick review 15 minutes before a course takes place. A tier 3 might include an hour and a half of pull-out instruction dealing with specific content on a regular basis. So it ranges in that system, and then students go into that problem-solving process with the hopes of monitoring that data and then taking that data and improving. Because what we found is interventions, quick interventions done over time and monitored closely for changes that are needed have a significant impact on learning, as opposed to what may include long-term addressing of a disability, which might include an individual education plan. This is that process in building what works for the student, what helps the student actually move to the grade level, and how do we coordinate that. So as I talk about the MTS coordinator, that would be a big portion of their responsibility, is that problem-solving process across the district. What we've had now is we have that system in place, but it isn't being followed with perfect fidelity as we'd like to see in every building. And so the responsibility of this coordinator would be making sure fidelity is followed. Also including what I referred to when we first started the process of problem solving in my previous district was a recipe book to develop the processes where teachers who know they have a specific issue with a student and or learning need for the student can go to that individual or that idea of having a, we called it the grand book of just ideas on interventions. And you'd search this idea and go through what might be at the tier 1 level to support this student. And then we developed that plan around that. In addition to what I would see and envision for this MTSS coordinator is the process that we just referred to in Kagan. Looking at our different processes across the district that we're monitoring behaviors through a screening process, and then also how we're identifying those behaviors for interventions, in addition to the same way we look at for academic needs and making sure those are in place. This is something that I think would certainly add to what we're doing currently and allow them specifically what those needs are and really support some of the processes that we have in place and be a requirement of our literacy grant for our application.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Item X is consider approval of purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of cleaning and disinfecting supplies and paper products for district buildings. From Bluff Sanitary Solutions for Trell Elementary, $5,336.22. Torrington Middle School, $5,402.41. Torrington High School, $27,198.89. Legal Fort Laramie Schools, $8,226.27. Southeast Schools, $10,637.24. Lincoln Elementary, $8,140.64, and LaGrange, $3,172.23, for a total amount of $67,753.90 funded through the general fund. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Next item, item Y, is consider approval of purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of insulation and carpeting in district buildings. For Lincoln Elementary, Legal Fort Laramie Middle School, Torrington High School, and the Transportation Office from Anderson Carpet, is a total amount of $71,840.62 funded through major maintenance. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second to approve this item this evening. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Did I miss something?
No, you didn't.
No,
All
I
right,
don't know what we did.
help me out here. All right.
Mr. Chair, would you like someone else to take over the reading of these items?
We're good.
Okay.
We're almost there.
It's like a marathon.
I feel your pain.
You want to finish.
I'm through 1.5 bottles of water, but we're good. Item Z is consider approval of a purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase and installation of flooring in the Trail Elementary cafeteria. For the Trail Elementary cafeteria from Carpet One, in the total amount of $26,823 funded through major maintenance. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So Marcy, Carpet One had a better bid than Anderson on this particular item.
You're correct. Anderson's bid was best, and we looked at each.
Yep.
Each individual, they were better on the carpet, and Carpet One was better on, this is a BLP option.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving this purchase this evening, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Item AA is to consider approval of a purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of a portable stage for Torrington High School from the Stage Depot in the total amount of $15,209.93 through the building's budget. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Can somebody explain just what we're talking about? The rationale.
This was requested by Torrington High School when we went through their major maintenance walkthrough, and this isn't a major maintenance appropriate expense. They described it as a new portable stage, in particular used for graduation. When you think about the gym being set up and that stage that they presently have is very heavy and cumbersome, and this one is to be easier to set up, store, and install.
I also would check with Mr. Christensen, who is joining us via Zoom, if you would like to add any additional comments to that.
I was just trying to text you back, but I think Marcy actually hit it right on. Don't hold me to this comment, but I'm fairly certain the stage we've got might be original to Willie Jim in the 1953 when it was built. It's fallen apart and very difficult for our custodians to move and get in place. And if we were to ever be at an outside graduation or an event where it were to rain, I don't know that it would necessarily make it through that type of thing. So just time to upgrade.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item BB is consider approval of a purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of Torrington High School football uniforms. The purchase would be for 110 football uniforms for Torrington High School's football team from the sports racket in the total amount of $18,040. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve this purchase. Is there any discussion?
Will that be very similar to the pattern and style of the old ones?
I haven't seen a picture, and I'd ask again if Mr. Christensen has anything. I believe they're very similar to what we currently have. My first reaction, and I'm used to purchasing one color at a time, and so when I saw 110, my immediate thought process, why do we need 110 uniforms? 55 home, 55 away is the reason for that. So that helped me kind of understand what we were doing. But as I understand it, it would remain very similar based on description in that invoice.
So is this just pants and jersey? And my second question is, where do the old ones go?
So this would just include then, as I understand it, the jerseys and not the pants. And then, or does Marcy, do you know any information on that? One of the specifics?
I don't know any more than what's on the purchase
Okay,
order.
I just want to make sure I'm almost certain it's just the specifics on that. The old ones and what has typically been done, in my experience, is that it goes to the junior varsity programs to be utilized.
And that may not actually carry through, just for the fact that with our football numbers, the JV programs are usually in the same jersey as our varsity team because there's so much crossover between the teams. We've been in discussion with Coach Steinmetz and with Mr. Bartlett around what could flow through for these uniforms. They are a very similar design to what's in place right now. And we thought there may be an opportunity to provide an option for seniors to purchase their number on their way out, something like that.
And I would also note that on the invoice, it appears that some of the funds for this are actually coming from either the athletic club or football camp funds that were raised, and $6,000 is what's coming from the football general fund. Is that correct?
That is correct.
There was a donation made from Football 101 of $3,850 specifically for this purchase. That was put into the football club fund. The amount that you see flowing out from that is zeroing out football club to include that $3,850 donation from Football 101. And then utilizing some banner fund money from the banner fundraiser that Mr. Bartlett and I started this year. So the businesses that have donated, so some of the funding is flowing from that. And then the remainder, I believe it was $6,000, Chairman Miller, of the purchase is flowing out of the building budget.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving this purchase for $18,040 for football uniforms for Torrington High School, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item CC is the consider approval of a purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of cabinetry for the Torrington High School. And installation. Approve the purchase and installation of 9 sets of cabinets for THS from Torrington Office Supply in the total amount of $14,400 from the general fund for district equipment. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the purchase of this purchase. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Please.
if I may just elaborate real briefly, this is just the purchase. The installation of those cabinets would come from both custodial and maintenance staff.
Thank you.
I would add to that this purchase is a continuation of what we've done over the past 4 years through a major maintenance process in an attempt to get cabinetry into our classrooms. And possibly in further years, it would be to add cabinetry or replace cabinetry in place. But so far, we've just been adding cabinetry to classrooms that don't have.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this purchase, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item DD is consider the approval of a purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of cafeteria tables for Torrington Middle School from Torrington Office Supply in the total amount of $20,300 through the general fund district equipment. Is there a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to topics for discussion. Are there any board members who would like to speak this evening on any pertinent topics?
No.
No.
I had one question regarding one of the student reps presentations. Just regarding the career field day, does THS have a date scheduled to offer a career field day? And if not, why not? And only 2 out of the 3 schools do it.
As I understand, actually, this was the first year that Linville actually had done this type of fair. And it was actually a very big success beyond what they had actually anticipated. The career fair piece is just a little bit different on how that defines. And so I don't know, and I'd go to Mr. Epler and Mr. Christensen to kind of elaborate on that question. If there's other things within that, and there's other college visit pieces that they do entail, if they know off the top of their head, but they could have more information too on that at our next meeting to provide answers for that if they don't have it off the top of their head.
I could speak to that shortly if you don't mind.
Please.
Yeah, we do have Blazer Pathways where we do bring career-oriented presenters from across the community and the county, if not broader, to include the military. And we've got those in monthly for all students to visit with. We also attend the career fair up at EWC with seniors each year. And in the past, we've sent students to a trades-oriented career fair that Wheatland High School puts on. Well, not Wheatland High School. Wheatland REA puts on at the fairgrounds out in Platte County. So we have had plenty of participation in career fair type activities for our seniors as well as our students throughout the student body. Blazer Pathways did go away for a little while during COVID. We were able to bring it back this spring and get that up rolling again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that I've also been doing is talking with Mr. Christensen and Kristen McGuire over at THS. There's a grant opportunity we're going to be looking at from a private funding source, which actually is really nice if we can get it because it gives us a lot more latitude on how to spend those funds. And we're looking at ways based on input from Mr. Christensen and Mrs. McGuire about how to expand what we're doing with the career program at THS. And so if we get that grant, that'll come back to you folks for approval, and I can explain a little bit more about what we're looking at doing. So we are trying to look at ways to do that.
Just to clarify that as well, it's not a THS, it's Goshen County deal.
All right, thank you. Any other topics? All right, for future meetings, the next regular board meeting for Board of Trustees will be Tuesday, May 10th at 7 p.m. And then item G is Mr. Kramer, Superintendent's report.
So this is a list of our current filled openings or ones that are still in process. As you can see, we've had a number of changes throughout this, and there are some that remain open, but a majority we have had filled. And so that in turn, we still are in that transfer time period in which we have some choosing to move into other positions that were open, then vacating other positions. And so it's quite the process to keep up. I appreciate Lorraine documenting this information and making sure she's keeping up with everything and we're keeping up with the movement because it does change day to day. One of the things that we really strive for in regards to our regular board meetings to have these agenda items in place and not have as many addendum, and we did a really nice job. We only had 2 after the agenda went out, but it is honestly a daily basis where we're filling these positions, and we're very lucky to have the applicants that we've had and the opportunities to fill those through what we're utilizing right now. And I'll move over to the student enrollment information, and just wanted to kind of highlight the total for this as opposed to going from building to building during this month. We did have this column right here. This is last month's ADM, kind of hard to read. Let's see if I can. So we had 1570 last month on our ADM. Remember, when we quantify this isn't necessarily students in seats or student enrollment, but it also calculates based on the students that are in attendance. And so if their average attendance isn't 100% of the time, they're not actually weighted at a 1.0 student. And so you can tell there was some movement in relation to some attendance pieces. We have had some move outs, and so we're at 1556, 62, and then previous month was 1570. At the end of the year, we take what I guess the best description would be an average of all of those together. And then on our funding model, it's an average of an average. And so they fund based on the previous 3 years. And so when we allocate funding, it's based on a 3-year rolling average of students in their ADM. And so this is something that definitely affects us as we kind of look and progress and look at different things and see how COVID has affected some of those enrollment numbers, and then how that actually compares to other things. The next piece that I want to talk about is continuation of our review of some of our data. So these are the ACT numbers relating all the way back to 12-13. One of the pieces that were kind of found within this year that is going to be interesting is we had the ACT being taken in Southeast and in Torrington High School today. And we'll get that data towards the end of the year. But as you can see, this last year, we certainly did not have the data from any of the categories that we expect. What is interesting to hear and to see this is we know that we've had a smaller number of students looking towards four-year college or universities and looking towards two-year options, other options of work, military, and those type of activities. It is interesting. So this number 21, 22 data are students that then, just like the MCAT or the bar exam or those type of things, a number of students take those assessments multiple times. So that 21, 22 data is students that then took it their junior year, but then came back also and then took it a second time at a different location. And you can see that dramatic difference in improvement. Now that's only about 25% of the class that has chosen to retake the assessment, but there is marked improvement on that assessment data in all categories related to that. And so there's an interesting piece to kind of take a look at and monitor to see as we step off that year where we didn't have the data to build upon. Is this a continuation of this? Is this a blip? Is this something that has a reflection on what we're doing? It is also interesting too to see the high ends that we still have the range of scores that we have had in the past. When you look at the high end, so our students that really achieved at that really high level still had those same high scores or the same rough number of students that were scoring in that plus 30 range, plus 25 range. But what we saw is a much lower number on some of our lower end, which sometimes the difficulty of putting a lot of onus on any of these assessments, when you're testing an entire student body and it doesn't have a meaningful allocation to it, and I'm having to take it, but I really don't have plans of utilizing the score, how do you instill that desire to really perform at that highest level? And that's a responsibility for us as administrators and teachers, is how do we instill that love for learning? How do we know this is a good gauge as opposed to something that I'm never going to need this score, why do I need to take this test seriously? And how we kind of create that balance, because that's what I saw within the range of scores within the 2021, 2020 data when we tested all students. And then looking at that 21, 22, you really saw some students who had investment within that and what that investment then translates into on their scores.
Sorry.
So all the, like, clear back to 2012, everything except 21, 22, that's all, well, that data is from mandatory testing. Do we
So
ever keep
12 to
track of
8?
voluntary?
Yep. So I do have that, but I did not disseminate that because in the report that I had, it would only show, it shows everybody's first and second time when I go to that report. And so in order to pull it, what I have to do is just write a formula to erase the duplicates, and I can have that information to kind of do a better comparison. But under what is displayed now, I don't have that comparison.
Is there an election so that they can easily filter that information out rather? I mean, it's been a long time since I've taken the ACT, but when you start, can you select what your intention is? You know, are you planning to enter the career, a career field, the military, 2-year or 4-year university, and filter it that way to see for those, for the various years, right? Like it'd be interesting to see if our potentially more trade type programs that we're promoting, if those students maybe are selecting something different.
I would actually just, I don't know, Mr. Christensen, if you have any knowledge of that, I'm not familiar enough with seeing that and getting that information. As I just kind of get the one screen with ACT, Mr. Christensen, have you seen any of that disseminated in that interest range?
Yeah, the students actually, and I'm probably more equipped to answer this having given the test today than I would have at any other point. So that's good. The state is allowed to ask a series of questions of students up front, and we gave the ACT on an online version today, which was a first. And the students were answering those, and we actually read them to them. They usually get them on a written sheet, but one of the questions did specifically ask what career plans or what future plans were after high school. And the issue with that, Chairman Miller, is the state's collecting that data. That's not anywhere, at least in reports previous to this year, that hasn't been anywhere where we're able to use it as a filter for our students. So it would be an interesting outcome. I mean, if we were able to filter on all of the questions that they provided, because most of them were yes, no questions, and it would provide a pretty tremendous amount of data for us to take a look at. But I have not seen that, the same as Mr. Kramer answered, but it's definitely data that's available.
Thank you.
And one of the things too that I think is going to be an important feature is we kind of approved last month in regards, or at the special meeting that we had, was the ability to kind of question our seniors, get accurate data in relation to how their experience in college has been. Because I think getting that accurate information is very, very important across all spans, as opposed to just, we sometimes get a lot of narrative information, but we don't necessarily are able to quantify that. I think that's an important factor.
Wasn't there some discussion in colleges dropping the ACT requirement for admittance?
That is actually one of the pieces that a lot of colleges are moving towards.
So then it just becomes something that the districts use?
Correct. Be an extension of pretty much YTOP is why we use it. And I spoke to a parent just recently who has a student at a 2-year college, and there was a really interesting assessment that their child took in a general education assessment, but they gave 3 minutes for every question, and they were allowed to utilize any tool to answer that question. Yep, anything. You could sit in, yeah, and so I thought that was a very interesting way of assessing students or assessing individuals, because I know my familiarity with my position, it's all about gaining access to resources. It isn't about memorization. It isn't about certain skills. It is how quickly can I access the information from the resources I gain and then turn that information into an accurate answer. And I thought that was a very interesting way of looking at assessing students' knowledge as opposed to memorization, because as we know, there are certain skills and requirements when I have a job that there are parts of that job that I absolutely have to memorize. But most times upon entry into that position, that's not a criteria of walking into it in many positions. It's on the job training, it's repetition on the job, and then I've maintained that automaticity within that. And so there's definitely factors in that. So I think colleges are interesting in that they are on the cutting edge of some things like ACT and looking at different ways of assessing and going through interviews. And then in other things, they're more in a traditional fashion. It's just a real interesting dichotomy as we look at that. But I have heard that regularly, that the ACT regarding an entrance, it probably won't exist long-term.
It's a fine line between being able to raise the tuition rates so fast and keeping the ACT staying the same. So you want your kids to pay more money? Have it both ways.
It will be an interesting, I think, post-secondary education, along with what we discussed in our last work session, along how we look at education for juniors and seniors in high school. I think both of those need to change dramatically over the next decade. Then just an update, oh, I almost forgot, I didn't want to forget on this case, I asked her to provide an update in regards to the fire that we had at Southeast and what steps we are taking and where we're at in that process.
I think you all have received some correspondence from Mr. Kramer, and you are aware that March 30th was the phone call nobody ever wanted to receive, and in the fact that the egg shop was on fire. Our insurance has reacted very promptly. Some people may not think it's exactly expedient, but the insurance adjuster was on site the very next day. And the following day, we had ServPro on site looking at, in particular, the woods area in the auto shop area and helping kind of evaluate what could be remediated in those spaces. On Thursday of this week, we have a construction consultant coming with the insurance adjuster. The problem that we have is that they do establish reserve limits or reserve estimates. And what that is that really is just the insurance company's estimate as to what kind of dollar payout could be involved. And when it gets very large, our reinsurer steps forward because it then goes to the next level of coverage. The building that was burned in the fire is being valued at over $800,000. We then have the contents that perished, and we have the remediation of the adjacent building. So a reserve is being set at $1.5 million. That is very large. We are fortunate in that our deductible is $10,000. So we're going to see things put back to normal. That's the purpose of insurance. The reinsurer is the one bringing out the construction consultant that's going to be here on Thursday. And the construction consultant is going to make some assessments, such as the classroom space that was adjacent to the egg shop has the potential, if the beams are solid, to not be in need of being demoed and starting all over. So the construction consultant is going to make some assessments as to if an engineer needs to come out or what the remediation may look like. When ServPro was on site, their recommendation is that the adjacent to the roof is insulation. Their recommendation is that the entire roof be shaved or removed over the woods and auto. The insulation be removed, new insulation be applied, and then the roof receive a new tin roof that, all of that adds cost and value. So unfortunately, they're not yet seeing any work out there, but there are people behind the scenes that are looking at plans, evaluating what we have, and hopefully following Thursday's visit, we may have some recommendations from that construction consultant. I do continue to ask the question, and the insurance adjuster feels very confident that we will have a space come August and the start of school. So I mean, right now that really is what our end goal is and what we're shooting for.
And then the only other item I had on my report was district graduation. Sunday, May 22nd, 1 o'clock. Lingo Fort Laramie High School, followed by Southeast 2:30 and 4 o'clock Torrington High School. That's all I have.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, how is it that we're gonna do graduation this?
So the way we've done it in the recent past was dividing up, and if you had an interest in attending a specific event, I'd take your name down. You are certainly welcome to attend more than one, but the idea was to divide up so there wouldn't have to be everybody rushing from site to site to get to there, because there is a tight timeline as we kind of push those together. So is there, I know, Carlos, you probably have a strong interest in possibly Torrington High School for this year.
I'm hoping. But yeah, so yeah, I was gonna ask, can you excuse from everybody else except Torrington?
If anybody wants to actually make sure and bring plenty of hankies for me for the Southeast one, they're certainly welcome to join me at the Southeast too.
I'll do Southeast and Lingo.
I'll do Southeast as well. Have a strong desire for any specific school. I most likely will try to make all three. So you can all three, all three.
And those that just need to kind of check their schedules and things, feel free to just let me know via email, text me or anything, and I can just get the list. Principals usually like to have that ahead of time so they can set out an appropriate chair for you and possibly identify where you're going to be at and balance that out. Our principals are kind of perfectionists on this day. They get to brag about their buildings and such. Thank you.
All right, is there any other business to come before the board? Hearing none. Sure. Thank you.